Former Bernie supporter and strategist Symone Sanders gets crushed. It is a brutal thing to watch. Welcome to the Soapbox. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas, and indeed, Symone Sanders gets crushed this weekend. Now, before we continue, if you guys enjoy this content, you find yourself coming back here often, please consider supporting this content through PayPal or Patreon. There is an ad apocalypse that is taking place where channels like this, just covering news for the most part, can put you on the list. When I push for support, I do so, and I often say even $1 helps, and that is absolutely true. Now let's do the news. Let's get to the story. Symone Sanders, back during, no relation to Bernie Sanders, by the way, worked with Bernie Sanders during the 2016 presidential campaign. Now, I imagine, as many of the supporters of Sanders imagine, that she was supporting his campaign because she, to some degree, was in ideological balance with Sanders. Many of the things she was pushing for and he was pushing for seemed to be in a certain ideological alignment. Not to mention, I would imagine, she might have been getting paid for the service. 2020 election. She's out there with Biden, and she's out there supporting and pushing for one Mr. Joe Biden. Now, this couldn't be any more ideologically different. And so again, some of the Sanders supporters in this case was like, what the hell are you doing? How on earth are you supporting Joe Biden in this particular election? I'd imagine she needs a job, in which case Joe Biden gave her a job. But she's a strategist for one Mr. Joe Biden. Now, the question comes up of what's called the Hyde Amendment. Now, what the Hyde Amendment basically is that federal funding shouldn't go towards abortion. That's basically what it is. Joe Biden has been against this for like 40 years. You can understand why he's against it. He's a Catholic. So this creates a little bit of a tension when Symone Sanders, who marched with Sanders, who probably disagrees with this policy, is supporting a candidate that agrees with the policy. And she has to go out and defend Biden on this front. Now, just so you can hear Biden in his own words talk about this, let's let him talk about it. This was in 2007, I believe, on Beat the Press.
Opposed to public funding for abortion?
I still am opposed to public funding to abortion, and the reason I am is, again, it goes to the question of whether or not you are going to impose a view to support something that is not a guaranteed right, but an affirmative action to promote.
Now, that point of view is by no means insane. I don't think that point of view is insane by any means. Meaning, if you're taking the position that I'm a Catholic, which he is, and I don't agree with abortion. And because I don't agree with abortion, I don't want federal funding to go towards abortion. That position to me is not insane in the least. Whether I agree with it or not is a different section. That same argument can be used for war. I don't agree with war. I am ideologically opposed to it. I think it's horrendous. I don't want my tax dollars to be used for unilateral wars. And yet Joe Biden was perfectly okay with the toppling of Libya, working with Obama in this case. And he is a militarist himself. So, I'm okay with it on one side, but my religious beliefs allow me to not promote it on the other. Yeah, not so much. I don't think you can have one and not the other. So me taking this ideological position, I'm saying I don't want my tax dollars going into this kind of militaristic spending somehow matters less than Joe Biden taking this quote-unquote principle stand of not wanting tax dollars to go towards abortions. My point is this. I don't hit Biden for taking this particular position. And the position, if you want to say, fair enough, it is what it is. It is a position that somebody can take. I don't think the position necessarily is insane. But there are negative consequences to not allowing women who are poor to have access to abortion. There are consequences. Biden has been getting hit for this. He's been getting hit all over the place from the standpoint of Sanders, but also from the standpoint of one Elizabeth Warren, who the press has been promoting like nobody's business. I keep saying she's the corporate candidate, not Joe Biden. Biden is going to flame out, mark my words. But In this very particular case, Biden is now under pressure from the other candidates in the race. Forget the fact that Elizabeth Warren voted for the Hyde Amendment when it was tucked in some other budget. Forget that fact for the moment. They've been hitting Biden on this point. So what does Biden do? Biden flip-flops. And Biden, almost overnight, comes back and says, you know what? I'm for it now. I'm for it now. Now I'm for it. That's what I am. I'm for it now. So, all of your attacks, I've learned the error of my ways and I've devolved on this issue overnight. I am for it now. What I strongly suspect happened is that Biden doesn't all that much care. Biden just wants to be president. I keep saying this. Just let me be president, man. I can't smell Merkel's hair if I'm not president. I don't have a reason to do it. I can't just go to Germany and say I want to smell Merkel's hair. They never let me do it. Just let me smell her hair. There's also a rumor that Symone Sanders cut her hair because she didn't want Joe Biden smelling it. That was rumored. Somebody told me that. I don't know if that's true. Nobody told me that. I'm just joking. But I hope you get my point on this. This is a flip-flop. This is a major flip-flop. And this is an unbelievable flip-flop. The position that Biden had before is a defensible position. The problem is he has to get through a primary with that position. And the people in the primary, especially in the Democratic primary, are decidedly to the left. And they are all for women getting their abortion rights. And with the pressure that is putting on women in the various states across the country against abortion rights, their access, choice. It's difficult for somebody with a pro-life position to have to deal with that and deal with those attacks as they go through the primaries. I strongly suspect the strategists in his party told him, look, if you really want to be president and smell Angela Merkel's hair, you can't continue with this position. In doing so, they knew two things. He's going to be hit as a flip-flopper. But being hit as a flip-flopper mattered less than the pain he would have continued to take had he not flip-flopped. Meaning, they knew they were going to get hit for the flip-flopping, but the flip-flopping is the least worst political position to take in trying to get through a primary like this. For all intents and purposes, nothing is going to come up on the issue of abortion when Biden gets in office, so this is not an issue that he's probably going to really have to deal with per se, unless legislation comes up with the kind of make choice like an affirmative right per se. So from Biden's standpoint, he just wants to be president. That said, the people who are fighting for Biden, for example, one Symone Sanders, has to defend her guy that was against this amendment for the last 40 years. And she has to go on television and defend that Biden just flip-flopped on this and seemed to have flip-flopped overnight and somehow pretend that the flip-flop is sincere. Oh, this is awesome. Symone Sanders does not fare well in this. In fact, I would say she got utterly brutalized in this particular debate with Jansen. She got brutalized because she didn't have a leg to stand on, because Jansen's point is right. Nobody in their right mind believes that Biden has all of a sudden did a come to Jesus all at once, overnight. That come to Jesus had more to do with him getting through the primaries, and everybody knows it, which is why she's having such a bad day on Jansen. Let's take a listen.
This position that he held for 40 years, the facts behind that have not changed. We just heard what he said about wanting to preserve access for all.
Absolutely.
Is your position then that somebody with his experience, his years in the Senate, his years as vice president, did not understand for those 40 years that the Hyde Amendment disproportionately affected poor women and women of color?
That's dead on. Understand what she's saying here. She's like, look, women who have means have access. They can afford to pay for abortion. Meaning, this amendment is going to disproportionately affect women who can't afford to pay for abortion. So people who actually need it won't be able to get their hands on it. I hope that makes sense. This is not allowing Medicare to cover abortions, or not allowing federal funds to go towards abortion, means that poor people, women of color, often won't have that particular bit of access because they can't necessarily afford to get that particular service. If you cut off federal funding for that, maybe they need that particular service. But Biden's argument, well, I have a religious bias against this. Again, I have biases against war. Nobody stops the federal government, or, They don't say that I cannot pay a certain amount of tax because, in order to pull out of stuff for war. But her point is, look, this disproportionately affects women of color and the poor. Biden knew this for the last 40 years. What's changed? Her point is nothing has changed. The only thing that has changed is that Biden needs to get to a primary. How are you going to get across to the public that this is a legitimate change within the candidate as opposed to a change, for expedience, political expedience? That's the position. And fact of the matter is, she is dead on right. She's dead on right. So Symone Sanders has to defend this. And again, my contention is they already knew they were going to be hit for this. This is just the least bad position if the candidate is trying to get through a Democratic primary in 2020.
This position that he held for 40 years, the facts behind that have not changed. We just heard what he said about wanting to preserve access for all.
Absolutely.
Is your position then that somebody with his experience, his years in the Senate, his years as vice president, did not understand for those 40 years that the Hyde Amendment disproportionately affected poor women and women of color?
Chris, that's absolutely not my position. What I said was, and let me be very clear, we have been having a thoughtful conversation in our campaign about our impending health care policy. Let's just be frank. Earlier this week, the reports of the Hyde Amendment, we didn't come out with a press release on the Hyde Amendment. The vice president was not somewhere pontificating about his very deeply held personal religious beliefs. There was a question, there was an inquiry from the press to our campaign. Okay? We were having a very thoughtful conversation about this in our campaign. We're not going to preview our campaign strategy, and we're not going to allow the press to dictate our policy rollouts. But what you heard, I want to be just very clear for folks around the country that the vice president is not someone that will just go with the wind of my friends on the left. If that was the case, you would have probably heard him come out last night for Medicare for all. Instead, you heard him talk about the continued expansion of Medicaid and a public option. Okay? He is someone that is authentic in his beliefs, and I just really think I'm concerned that folks are editorializing on his religious beliefs as though he's not a staunchly, deeply held religious person, but also somebody that understands that we got to do things to make sure that everybody is covered. And so that's where this came from. And this has been a continued conversation that, yes, came to a head this week. Okay? But again, we're not letting the press dictate our policy rollouts. The vice president is authentic. Folks know who he is.
She is falling apart. She is falling to pieces. She is falling to pieces. We're not going to let the left dictate our policy rollouts. He's a principled man. He's a principled man. Let me explain to you the difference. They probably were having a conversation with Biden. Sir, if you want to get through the primaries, you got to take this position. The difference is Medicare for all is not a position that you must take in order to get through the primaries. You can take the position of Biden of let's expand Medicaid, let's have a public option, et cetera, I'm going to take the centrist route to dealing with it. That's a political route within the Democratic Party that you can take. And there is a large section of money that is waiting for people to take that position. So that position is not necessarily insane. That's not a principle one way or the other. That's a political incentive. I am making the point that what they told him probably was you cannot get through the primaries holding this position. You're going to be attacked relentlessly for this. If you maintain this position, you need to change. This principle talk that they've had was a come to Jesus moment of, dude, this is not going to work. However, she's trying to cast this like we had this heart to heart, and he just understood all at once. The last 40 years didn't matter. It fell from his eyes, and Joe Biden fell to his knees. And there was a small woman there. He smelled her hair. And then he said, fair enough. Let's do this. Let's make this change. I don't buy that for one iota. They probably had a heart-to-heart with him, all right, of saying, dude, you pay us to tell you the truth, and you can't make it through the Democratic primaries holding this position. Symone Sanders is having a bad day. This is what it looks like when you're a Bernie supporter, and now you're trying to fight for Joe Biden. Let's hear this. Let's hear it from the beginning, because I think she's flipping out here, which kind of indicates that the reporter is right, and she is doing her damnedest to spin and shake to try to hold on in a position.
Hyde Amendment disproportionately affected poor women and women of color?
Chris, that's absolutely not my position. What I said was, and let me be very clear, we have been having a thoughtful conversation in our campaign about our impending health care policy. Let's just be frank. Earlier this week, the reports of the Hyde Amendment, we didn't come out with a press release on the Hyde Amendment. The vice president was not somewhere pontificating about his very deeply held personal religious beliefs. There was a question, there was an inquiry from the press to our campaign. Okay? We were having a very thoughtful conversation about this in our campaign. We're not going to preview our campaign strategy, and we're not going to allow the press to dictate our policy rollouts. But what you heard, I want to be just very clear for folks around the country that the vice president is not someone that will just go with the wind of my friends on the left. If that was the case, you would have probably heard him come out last night for Medicare for all. Instead, you heard him talk about the continued expansion of Medicaid and a public option. Okay? He is someone that is authentic in his beliefs, and I just really think I'm concerned that folks are editorializing on his religious beliefs as though he's not a staunchly, deeply held religious person, but also somebody that understands that we got to do things.
I don't care about his religious beliefs. I care about his policies. If his policies have been inspired by his religious beliefs, fair enough, but I care about his policies. If his policy is creating an environment in the outside world where, in one sense, he is okay with the bombings and the killings and so forth, do you realize they have slaves in Libya based on policies that him and his guy, Obama, was pushing through, not to mention Honduras, and not to mention being okay with this kind of militaristic policy. But on the other side, I don't want my money going towards women having abortions. Fair enough. But by the same token, that means that I should be able to say, I don't want my tax dollars being going towards war either. But of course, that would be a nonsense position. By the same token, that having federal dollars not go towards abortion is supposedly a principal position. Fair enough. Joe Biden can have that position. The problem here is that Joe Biden flipped on a whim on this position because he didn't believe he can get through the primaries. That's the issue. The issue is not whether or not Joe Biden supports the Hyde Amendment or not support it. The fact of the matter is he flipped on it after being for it for 40 years. He knew it was politically disadvantageous to hold on to the position. That's the issue. That's the point. Let's keep going.
To make sure that everybody is covered. And so that's where this came from. And this has been a continued conversation that, yes, came to a head this week. Okay? But again, we're not letting the press dictate our policy rollouts. The vice president is authentic. Folks know who he is. And I know for a fact he is not someone that you could just twist his arm and back him into a corner. That's not how he operates.
Yeah,
so
I'm not sure how him answering a question saying he continued to support the Hyde Amendment and less than 2 days later coming out and saying something different is the press. Can I finish my statement? I'm not sure how that is the press dictating his policy rollout. I want to.
By the way, that is not the press dictating his policy rollout. Joe Biden asked the question and other candidates found a way to take advantage of it and hit him on it. And he, 2 days later, totally reactionary, flip-flops. That's what it is. And I love the way she asserts control of her space. Can I finish? Okay. Yeah. Symone Sanders, former Bernie supporter, now having to support somebody who is anti-abortion, anti-choice. The guy flip-flopped for political reasonings, and now she has the indignity of having to be out there defending Joe Biden on this flip-flop, and is looking bad in the process of doing it. Oh well. I'll leave it here. I'm not going to keep this one long. By the way, I'm going to be on Sputnik today on By Any Means Necessary. That is going to be at 3 p.m. I may try to sneak one show in between now and then. It will have to be a quick one. But no animosity towards Symone Sanders at all. But yeah, you're looking bad. You're looking bad at defending this. Just saying. I don't know what Joe Biden is paying you, but I hope it is well paid, because Jesus Christ, you're earning it this week. And before I leave, there were super chats. Let me get to those, and I have my Streamlabs open today. So, bam, the people who joke with me on that. Kills for a living. Why can't Symone Sanders be frank? You're being transphobic, Jamarl. How dare you? Hillary is 2020. I'm not being transphobic. Oh, that's so wrong. 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 Yeah, I'm not even going to elaborate on that. That's funny, but fucking wrong. Balthazar, I hope we repeal the Hyde Amendment when Medicare for All passes. With the Jekyll Amendment, I'd be even happier if the money was sourced from tax-paying megachurches. Isn't that amazing? Those churches are massive, and no, those churches I don't think should be getting a tax break after that, because they have political ambitions. I mean, well, that's a separate conversation. I don't want this one to go too long. We're already at 20 minutes. The issue with identity politics, DNC wants another Donna Brazile, and I've chosen someone who isn't up to the task. You mean, what's his name? Donna Brazile was a shark. She was a shark. Symone is meat. You know, I do think Donna Brazile was a, yes, I agree with you on that part. Donna Brazile was a shark. She's a political operative. I agree with you on that. When she was on like TYT and what's her name? It wasn't Emma. It was one of the other people. They were acting as if Donna Brazile was like on her like her buddy and like I called Brazil up and all this other stuff. It's like, what are you talking about? That woman is a political operative. she's working for the benefit of the party, trying to ingratiate herself into what they consider to be lefty media, so that lefty media can bring those people into the Democratic Party. That's her own option. That's her own point. That's her own purpose. And she's acting like, oh, Donna Brazile got a bad rap and you just don't understand. And she's wet. She's wet. I agree with you, Garden. I agree with you. Abortion is not an identity political issue. I don't think abortion is identity politics either. Why is she bald-headed? She's bald-headed because she wants to be bald-headed. I have no idea. Symone Sanders was a lying mole in Bernie Sanders' 2016 campaign. See, I don't know if she's a lying mole. Is it she's being paid by another campaign? And so this is why she's... Like, think about it for a moment. Maybe you're getting paid to do a job. I mean, I don't... Like, it's not always about what these guys have a political identity for. The left is full of suckers. For God's sakes... Some still support Bernie. Hey, you're talking about the left full of suckers. You're supporting Donald Trump. You're supporting Donald Trump. You believe that garbage when he got in office. 2 times agreed. So sorry the left falls for the diversions. Okay, what did 2 times say? Think so much for... let's move too fast. Move too fast. All right, I can't see it. All right, I'm going to end this because I have... Yeah, let's try to get one more in before 3 o'clock. I have a video that's coming up with By Any Means Necessary that's going to be on Sputnik. I'm going to be calling in. I'm not driving to DC today. That takes up all my day. And I'm probably going to have shows after that is over with. So I will see you guys shortly. I don't know if I can get one in between now and then, but we'll see. Maybe. All right, guys. Have a good one. If you enjoy the content... You find yourself coming back here often, please consider supporting through PayPal or Patreon. Let me do one more check to make sure I haven't missed anything. But yeah, man, she's looking bad on this. She's looking really bad on this one. And I mean purely from the standpoint of trying to defend somebody who, from your own political disposition, is indefensible. Again, I don't think taking the position on the Hyde Amendment is insane one way or the other. You could say, it is my political disposition to disbelieve that we should be using federal money for this. Fair enough. Totally understand it. I disagree with it, but I totally understand it. By the same token, I'm going to think you're being a hypocrite if you are okay with... Meaning, that I don't see how that position is any different than me saying, I don't think we should be investing this money in regards to regime change operations abroad, something that Joe Biden is for. But, you know, I'm a radical on that point. Joe Biden is principled. Well, not so principled now that he flipped that position within 2 days when he needed to get elected. So, great job putting heat on him for it. Funny that he had to flip on it. And again, he flip-flopped knowing he was going to get hit on it. It's just... The alternative is worse. The alternative is holding on to the position. That said, I agree with Galloway. If you run, they're going to chase you for the rest of your life. And in this case, they're chasing him. They're chasing him. Thanks all. I'll see you in a few.